Hello and welcome to City Beat. We're your central source of news and information for the city of Rocky Mount. I'm Tamika Keenan Norman, and thank you so much for tuning in to another edition of City Beat. And during today's show, you're going to have an opportunity to meet some new faces for the city of Rocky Mount, as well as some familiar faces who've taken on new positions within the city. And one of those familiar faces is Pamela Casey, who's transitioned into the role of city clerk. Hi, Pam. How are you?
Hey, Tamika. I'm great. About you?
Good, good. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
Got to say that first and foremost.
Thank you.
And got to say a familiar face because you've been with the city for quite a while. Tell me a little bit about how long you've been here and some of the roles that you held previously.
Okay, I've been here for 6.5 years. I came to the city in 2007 in the role of department secretary, and I served in that position until I received a promotion to assistant city clerk in July of 2009. Interim city clerk was the position I held just prior to being appointed to city clerk. That was a short term, about 3 months, and officially became city clerk for the city of Rocky Mount July 1st.
Well, congratulations again.
Thank you.
How does that feel, Pam? I mean, you've made a huge transition, 2 different roles that you assumed. Well, you can say 3 with interim city clerk. How does it feel now to be in that leadership position?
It's been very overwhelming, actually. Not the job, but the attention. I'm not used to that kind of attention, but it has been wonderful to have the support of my family, friends, co-workers, and citizens, just to congratulate me on that and to say, oh, we've been watching you, you're doing a good job. And I'm just so honored and humbled that the mayor and city council would entrust that position to me.
And speaking of attention, I know on July 8th, you had a swearing-in ceremony during the city council meeting.
I did.
Lots of attention
Yes,
there.
a lot of attention. Yes.
Tell me about some of your family and friends who were in attendance.
Oh, there were so many. My son and his wife, Matthew and Claire, they live in Arlington, Virginia. My daughter Elizabeth was here. Her best friend, Brittany, who has become my adopted daughter. My workout buddy, Anita, and one of her friends, Hope and Clay Ashworth, who are her good friends, and Wanda and Terry. Wanda works in our human resources department, and it was just so good to have so many people here. And of course, you know that Jean was here as my biggest supporter and held the Bible for me. So
absolutely, absolutely.
And I don't think I mentioned my husband. He was certainly
You better
here.
do that,
yes.
Pam. So why? Well, first, before I want to talk a little bit about Jean as well. But why is there a swearing-in ceremony for city clerk?
Well, normally when people are appointed or elected to a position, they take an oath, and it's to uphold the Constitution of the United States and also the Constitution and laws of their state, whatever state that is. It is before God, and they swear to discharge the duties of that position to the very best of their skill and ability. And being before God, there's an implication that to not do so or to bring shame upon the position would also bring about divine displeasure.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, you mentioned Jean a little earlier, and I realized since I've been here for the past year that you and Jean were really close.
Yes.
You know, she was there at your ceremony. I've seen you in downtown live events. Tell me about your relationship with Jean, and was she sort of a mentor to kind of prepare you for this position in a sense?
Absolutely, and not just to me. Jean has been mentor for many clerks throughout the United States, actually, because she's served in leadership roles in the IMC, which is the International Institute of Municipal Clerks. And as such, she has really been a mentor to many, but it was easy to look to Jean for that. My goal when I came here was just to be the best assistant that I could be. I first came here, and my very first day on the job was the day of a city council meeting at 7 o'clock that night.
Wow.
And I asked her if I could come back. She was pretty shocked that I would want to come back to work at 7 o'clock that night. I went to that meeting, and I've been going ever since because you know, I want to do the best job I can do in whatever job that is, so I needed to learn that job, and going to the council meetings allowed me to learn it. Over time, some of the jobs that she did, I would look and go, you know, I could do that, and so I started doing them, and so we slipped into a bit of a student and teacher relationship, and that I would start to do some of the work, and she would have to then, instead of do it, she had to grade it, which frankly is harder than doing it yourself sometimes.
Right.
It's a little harder to catch mistakes when someone else makes them and you're just grading the paper. So. But she was very patient. Her door's always open, not just to me, but to all of her staff.
It certainly is.
And,
it is. And,
so-
and I know that helped a lot, but you have to give yourself accolades too, because you've had a lot of previous experience kind of in this field as well. Tell me a little bit about some of the firms that you worked for before even coming to the city of Rocky Mount.
Well, I worked for the Garins Law Firm in Kinston for a total of 18 years and took on the role of office manager a bit at that office. And I decided to come home to work in Rocky Mount and worked for Henson and First for a short time. Went back to Kinston for a bit, and then I came back to Rocky Mount and worked for the firm of Knox, Carnegie, and Bennett. There was a four-man attorney office, and when the attorney that I primarily reported to began to contemplate retirement, I decided to make a change and went to Greenville to the firm of Ward and Smith. That was by far the largest firm where I had ever worked. They had 5 offices and about 60 people in the Greenville office, maybe a little more. I reported to 5 attorneys, and primarily my area of practice was medical malpractice and personal injury. Although coming from a one-man law firm, they do everything. In the olden days, they did it all, and now they specialize a bit more. So I was able to have some good experience of the importance of attention to detail and the importance of not missing deadlines.
And those are all things that will fit perfectly with this role as city clerk, right?
They do, yes.
Tell me a little bit about some of your responsibilities as city clerk and responsibilities of the entire office.
Okay. The city clerk reports directly to the mayor and the city council and works with them. One of the most important statutory duties of the city clerk is to prepare and maintain the records of the meetings of the city council, which is our governing board. That's important because that is legal evidence of the action that council makes.
Okay.
The other things that we do and that we want to do more of is to be the liaison, the citizens liaison for the mayor and council. Take a little greater role in that. The city clerk's office maintains many official records for the city, just various ones. We are responsible by statute for noticing the meetings and making sure that that proper notice is given. The city clerk also, although she takes an oath, can also administer oaths, and maybe some folks would know that she also is responsible for enforcing the state laws governing going out of business sales, and also responsible for collecting fines for fire code violations.
So that's a lot of stuff.
A lot of hats in the city clerk's office.
You like the
yes.
way I put it? That's a lot of
A
stuff.
lot of hats.
It really is. So, Pam, and I know you've been dealing with this as well in your previous position as assistant city clerk. What has been your motivation? What is going to be your motivation now that you're in that leadership role?
Just to do a good job, no matter what I'm doing. If my name is associated with it, I want to be proud of it and to know that I've done the best job I can do, and that's really motivation enough. Now, the motivation will be also that these are historical records that I will be signing, so people 20, 30, 50, 100 years from now will be researching those minutes because I left a young man in the vault researching minutes just now that people years ago have signed. And so it's important to me that they be accurate and that they be grammatically correct so that when they are being looked at many years from now, that they can go, oh, they're great. They did a good job back then.
Exactly, exactly. And you will have left a lasting, wonderful legacy as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But we know we're going to
absolutely.
have you 40 more years. Like
See,
Jim was
oh.
here 40, Pam's going to be here 40. So, yeah.
We'll see about that.
And Pam, one thing I've noticed about you as well is you're very active in the community also, from the Twin Counties visioning and strategic planning process when we have our employee blood drives. Tell me about some of those organizations that you're a part of as well.
Okay. I think I began community involvement really in my church first. I've been so blessed to have so many mentors in my life who have encouraged me and maybe pushed me and challenged me a little bit, but also just given me the confidence that I can be a part of things and even lead things sometimes. So when my children were younger, of course, I was involved in the PTO, and then as a Girl Scout leader as my daughter was growing up, and was a Girl Scout leader until she graduated from high school and went off to college. And Girl Scouting will always be one of my passions, but now I just assume the role of buying a lot of Girl Scout cookies.
Right.
Also, blood drives are just so important because I don't know how else you can save 3 lives in just a little over an hour. So that is a very important role, and any of us can do that. Now, understanding that health may keep you from doing it, but healthy people can generally do it. It's also good for you. It's a little mini blood check just to make sure everything, because they do all that testing. They check your temperature and your blood pressure, so it's a little mini checkup.
And it doesn't hurt. I remember it was because of you that I did it for the first time.
That's great.
Yeah, so
That's
thank you very much.
great. Also, it's really good for men because it is not good for men to have too high an iron level. That lowers those iron levels. And I'm just so pleased to be a part of the Nash County Blood Committee because that is through the Frederick E. Turnage chapter of the Red Cross. And I don't believe that you had the opportunity to meet Mayor Turnage.
I did not.
But he was just such a wonderful leader and such a wonderful man that I'm just honored to be part of anything that bears his name.
Great.
Most recently, Twin County Visioning. I want to encourage anyone to be a part of that. There's still room for people to be part of that. This is a wonderful program that the City of Rocky Mount, together with Nash and Edgecombe counties, has begun to bring a more positive image to our area. Part of that is to have a lot of people involved. And so the big committee has split off into 7 subcommittees. And Daryl Strother and I co-chair the Ambassadors Program Subcommittee. We have assembled a wonderful group of people, the service workers, restaurant owners, convenience store owners and workers, and people who see the public as they come to town and have that opportunity to give the welcome to people visiting our town and to make them feel special and to make them want to come again. And so all of the 7 subcommittees are working hard, and we are going to make this happen.
All right. The best way to predict the future is to create it.
Absolutely.
That's what Peter Drucker says.
Absolutely.
So what's next for you, Pam? I know it's the city clerk's role, but do you have any other personal or professional goals for yourself?
Well, I need to catch up and get adjusted to the new chair, and before I begin this new role of service as the city clerk, I'm excited about that. Personally, I plan to continue on with my newly found exercise and fitness program. I'm amazed that I'm doing that still, but we need to do it. It's good for me, and so I plan to keep doing that. Professionally, I just want to be that encourager that Jean was for me, and to encourage both my staff and also other clerks to be a mentor for them and to take a greater role with the North Carolina Association of Municipal Clerks and also the International Institute of Municipal Clerks.
All right. Well, good luck to you, Pam.
Thank you so
But I
much.
know you're going to do well. You have a charismatic personality and you're a hard worker. So
Thank you,
I wanted
Tamika.
our folks to see that as well.
I appreciate that.
All right. Thank you for tuning into City Beat. When we come back, you'll meet a new face to the city of Rocky Mount, our assistant city manager. We'll be right back.
PNC presents Rocky Mount's Lawn Chair Theater. We invite you and your family to join us for free family movie nights every other Friday night from June 7th until August 16th on the lawn of the Imperial Center. Doors open at 7 p.m. and the movies begin at sundown. You're invited to check out movies like The Odd Life of Timothy Green, The Rise of the Guardians, The Lorax, Wreck-It Ralph, Chimpanzee, and The Blue Butterfly. And thanks to all of the following sponsors. For more information on Lawn Chair Theater, call 972-1167.
Hello and welcome back to City Beat. I'm your host, Tamika Keena Norman, and thanks to Pamela Casey, who joined us a little earlier to talk about her new role as city clerk for Rocky Mount. And during today's show, we're going to talk to some familiar faces about their new positions within the city, as well as some new faces like Assistant City Manager Tasha Logan. So hello and welcome.
Thank you very much, Tamika. Glad to be here with you.
Yeah, not only to City Beat, but also to the city of Rocky Mount, because you've been here for how long
Almost
now?
2 months now. It's gone by quite fast now that I think about it, but I started on the 21st of May.
Wow, so really, really new.
It is.
So, did you know anything about Rocky Mount before you came here?
You know, not a whole lot about the community. I had been familiar with Rocky Mount from our professional associations and from working with the city manager. Actually, when I began working in Goldsboro, I came down and met Peter Barney before he retired, because you all were just starting to renovate the train station. And we were looking at a very similar project there in Goldsboro, so you could say on some level that I came to Rocky Mount to learn some things to take back to Goldsboro.
Okay, well, I'm sure that made you feel comfortable
did.
when you came here. So,
did.
how does it feel? You're in a new organization, new area, assistant city manager. How do you feel about that?
You know, I can honestly say that I think being part of a military family makes it easy for me to adjust to different places. I'm settling in, meeting new neighbors, and starting to see familiar faces when you're at the grocery store. And I think that I've actually learned employees' names a little bit, so I'm not asking what their names are 2 and 3 times when I see them.
Right.
So I'm settling in. It
Well,
feels great to
good.
be here.
Good. And you mentioned being a part of a military family. What are some of the places that you've lived?
You know, I really had it. I had it good with my parents. I came on the end of my dad's military career, so I did not have to do quite as much moving as some folks. But we did live in South Carolina. I was born in Charleston, South Carolina. We were in the Netherlands for 4 years, Holland.
Wow.
So we stayed there for 4 years, and I actually started school there at international school. So that was quite an experience, you know, starting school there and then coming back to the United States. We lived in a small town in Tennessee, Tullahoma, Tennessee. Very small, one-stop light railroad bisected the town, so that's something very similar to Rocky Mount. And then we moved to Goldsboro, and my father retired there, so that's where we call home.
Well, I'm jealous because I'm from Wallace, North Carolina. That's where I stay.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit more about yourself, like where you went to school and how long you've been in local government.
Well, I went to undergrad at UNC Greensboro and loved being there, and have always had this mindset of I wanted to be in a profession where you could help individuals. And when I started there, really had my mindset on being a social worker. But I quickly realized that I would probably want to take everyone home with me, or want to try to fix everything. And so started thinking about other opportunities, and local government was kind of where my heart was quickly shifted to local government. From there, I finished my graduate program at NC State. And after working for the town of Cary and for a nonprofit in Durham, worked for the city of Goldsboro.
Okay. Well, I knew I liked you because I'm a Spartan.
Well, see, neither one of us have on the signature class rings. We
There
should
you
have
go.
known that from day one. I have one, and a lot of places I go, I was talking with one of our league members. He works for the league, and I saw the ring that he had on, and it was the signature UNCG ring. And I saw that from a distance when we were walking down the hallway, and I asked him, I said, "Did you go to UNC Greensboro?" He was like, "I did." And then we started talking about it there. So you know your
That's good.
Spartans.
Yeah, yeah.
They're good people.
So let's talk about your role. You mentioned Goldsboro a little earlier. You were also assistant city manager there. Tell me about some of your responsibilities.
I had 5 departments when I was there in Goldsboro, very similar to Rocky Mount, except they were much smaller. Most of those departments were 2 or 3 individuals that were in the departments, but very high-profile departments. Most of them had either separate funding sources that were attached to them or separate boards that were attached to them. So one thing that I learned in Goldsboro was you quickly learn how to become a facilitator as an assistant manager in that community. Downtown development was part of my responsibilities, but the organization there was set up with a separate nonprofit board, had their own funding stream. They did their own fundraising and put on several events in our community. Our downtown concert series was actually put on by that nonprofit board. The city was responsible for their staff members, so you have to have a very good relationship in terms of being able to manage your staff, which you're directly responsible for, but also being responsible for that board that's 20 independent members, independent thinkers, business owners that are downtown and have very clear vision and also a certain level of authority in what they can do. But we just had a exceptionally good relationship between our downtown organization and the city of Goldsboro. We also had the Paramount Theater was another department that I managed. Separate foundation that supported the Paramount Theater. This was a project that was originally a city facility. It burned. A group of community members really compassionate about theater in the community helped us to rebuild the theater and then donated that back to the city of Goldsboro. IT, which is one of those departments that was small in terms of the staff. We had 4 staff members that were there, but it touches everything that we do. I mean, when something went down, you realize how important your IT staff becomes at that point, from how we handle billing to our mobile terminals with our police department and fire department in the field, every cell phone, every desktop, our ability to collect revenue coming in. We were kind of the backbone of that infrastructure with IT. And the community affairs, which is very similar to human relations here.
Okay.
And Rocky Mount was one of my responsibilities. We had our Mayor's Youth Council was part of community affairs in Goldsboro. And then the final one was travel and tourism. We had our travel and tourism operation, which was housed at the chamber, but we managed the staff in that program too.
Okay.
So some similarities.
Yeah, very much
in.
so. Yeah, very much so. And you didn't start in Goldsboro as an assistant city manager.
I did not.
How did you get to that point?
In some ways, I was a person that just kept coming back, I do believe, in Goldsboro. I initially began working for the city of Goldsboro in 97, 97 through 99. I came and I worked in the manager's office as an intern, ironically enough. And that first experience in 97 was my first experience in local government, and it really helped to solidify my decision to change my major when I was at UNC Greensboro and pursue local government. And worked in the manager's office, worked some in Parks and Recreation, put together some pretty good sized projects and working with our military base when we hosted a Special Olympics team that came through Goldsboro in 1999. And then left there, went back to graduate school, and then I went through that phase of, are you sure this is what you want to do? You have those folks that they come in and I've known what I want to do, know what I want to be when I grew up. They've known it their entire life, and I was wondering, do I really know?
Right.
So I spent some time working for a nonprofit, but realized that my passion was in local government. And that's what I wanted to do. So started to look back in that field, and Goldsboro had a position open for an administrative assistant to the manager. So I went back to Goldsboro as administrative assistant, and then I was promoted to assistant manager in 2005. So I served as an administrative assistant for a year, and then assistant manager in 2005.
Wow. See, that's good. I love to listen to people's stories and how they get to the place where they are in life. You look so young, and you've done so many different things. So,
thank you.
To you for that.
I can't complain at all. Goldsboro was a good place for me. I had some great managers that I worked for while I was there in Goldsboro, all very different in their styles and how they managed. And I will say my first manager that I had in Goldsboro was roommates with Mr. Varney when they were at Carolina. So in some ways, it's kind of ironic that I end up in Rocky Mount, because when I began working there, and you start learning some of the other managers and professionals in the field, and that was one that I was introduced to early on, which is where I would first learn about Rocky Mount and some of the projects here. And 9-10 years later, I'm in Rocky Mount.
So Tasha, we talked about some of the departments that you oversaw in Goldsboro. What about here in Rocky Mount?
Well, you know, we talked some about how we wanted to structure responsibilities when I came to Rocky Mount, and this was shortly after Mr. Penny had let me know that I was going to be able to come to Rocky Mount, which was a very nice call that I got. But the departments that I have here are police and fire, looking at the public safety side of things. We also have downtown development, which is familiar to me from Goldsboro. And then I have a planning department, and then our engineering department, and our transit system falls under engineering now. That was a restructuring that was done prior to my arrival, which is also somewhat familiar to me because our gateway system in Goldsboro, I served as our liaison between the City of Goldsboro and the Gateway Board. They had an urban and rural right that was combined in Goldsboro. So I'm familiar somewhat with how that process works too.
Okay. So how do you think your experience in Goldsboro can be attributed here in Rocky Mount? And I'm really, really interested in downtown development as well, because I think you came into the picture right around the streetscape celebration.
I did.
Okay.
I did. And we had just finished the first block of streetscape in Goldsboro as well when I was leaving there. But I tell you, you know, whenever you're looking at a project like downtown development, it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. You've got to be able to keep the enthusiasm going. You've got to be able to have milestones that show that you're, you know, making steps and you're accomplishing the goal. But it is something that requires some perseverance. It requires folks that are dedicated to the process, and also understanding that the investments that we're making in downtown is not just for downtown, but it's about strengthening the core of your community. It's also seen as kind of the heart of your community. And once you have a strong commercial core, you know, that attracts other development, it attracts other jobs. You know, it shows that you really care. And that transcends into other areas of town. Also, when you're starting to see reinvestment occur in your community that supports your other services, whether it's your public safety services. When you start to have new development happening downtown and new housing coming online, then that helps to provide a better quality of housing and improve choices for your residents that live in the community. So, you know, when I think about downtown development, I can take away all the things that I've learned in Goldsboro. It's a much different scale here in Rocky Mount, but a lot of the strategies that you use are very similar. The relationships that you have to build with individuals to see projects move forward is very similar. Learning who the key players are. You know, I've had the opportunity to hear about the work that we're doing with Rocky Mount Edgecombe CDC, you know, different housing authorities that we're working with, and I mean our, you know, Carolina Gateway partnership. I'm learning all these players and how we're all involved in making sure that we're investing in our downtown community. I'm really excited about the partnership in Edgecombe Community College with the investment that they're getting ready to make in downtown. I mean, all of us have to do our part to make it happen. And I was talking with Ann, and she reminded me, she said, you know, we've been working on downtown for 18 years. I said, and we're going to keep working on it, even if it's 18 more, because that's what we have to do, and that's the commitment level that we have to make to our community.
Yeah, so it's just an ongoing thing.
It's an ongoing process. You never want to stop. You know, when you get this one done, okay, what's that next item that we're going to have to work on?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So what do you think so far about Rocky Mount, the organization in general, and what do you see as far as your goals in the near future? And I know you haven't had an opportunity, you've got to delve into things a little bit more, but what are some things that you might want to get involved in?
When you think about specific goals, I think by being in the community for 2 months, it's hard to, you know, nail down, I want to do this by this date. But I think that in terms of kind of high-level goals, you know, when you come into a community as a manager or as a leader in a community, you always want to make sure that you leave that community better off than it was when you came there. You want to continue to see things progressing and moving forward. Whether it's a project or whether it's, you know, with staff development, because the other side of it is you're managing projects and you're managing processes, but also you have a group of people that are working with you, and it's a team behind every effort that happens. So for me, I think part of it is making sure that we're continuing to make steps and progress moving forward. It's about becoming engaged in the community and hearing what people want to see, hearing what some of the concerns are, and if there are changes you can make there to also work on that front. And I think the third piece would be staff development, making sure that you're supporting staff, making sure that your staff is continuing to grow professionally, because as they're growing professionally, that just raises the level of service that they're able to provide citizens. So all those things are kind of tied together for me, and what are goals that I would like to see long term.
Okay. And speaking of engagement, you were very engaged in the Goldsboro community. I was really impressed when I read about you and prepared the press release and all that good stuff. But tell us about some of the organizations you were involved in, and if you want to get involved in some of those types of organizations here in Rocky Mount?
I think that for me, whenever you choose this kind of career, it's not just a job. It becomes a lifestyle for you, which with what you do. I mean, you have to like what you do to be as good as you are at it, and you do a very good job that I've seen here. Just the material that goes out. I told you when I got here, a lot of what I was learning about Rocky Mount were things that you were putting out in the My Rocky Mount magazine, and I had watched some of the shows that we're doing right now, and that's how I learned some about some of our council members, the interviews that you had done with them in our different departments. For me, in terms of being involved in the community, it's just natural. I want to do some of those things. Organizations that I was part of in Goldsboro, loved working with the Boys and Girls Club. We've renovated their teen center. And that was a project that I did with my Rotary Club. I was president of our Rotary Club. I've been a Rotary member since 2004, and intend to get involved back with the organization once I have some time to get my good, solid foundation of the city organization. I think that you can quickly take on too much too soon when you move, that's been my biggest, one of the biggest problems for me is wanting to jump out there and do so many different things. But I do want to make sure that I spend some time getting to know the organization and get a good foundation there. And then I'll branch out into the community. But I enjoy working with youth. Worked with the Partnership for Children in Goldsboro, worked with communities and schools in Goldsboro, was very active with United Way when I was in Goldsboro. I do continue to serve on a board for a hospice agency, 3HC. We do provide some services in Rocky Mount, which is why I continue serving on that board even though I've relocated. But from the birth to 5-year-olds to high school students to working with those that are elderly or that are at the end of life stages, it runs the gamut for me. As long as I'm working with people, I'm typically pretty happy. So I think there's plenty of opportunities for me to get involved in Rocky Mount, and I'll do that when the time is right.
Well, excellent. And thank you, Tasha, so much, and good luck to you.
Well, thank you.
Okay, I know you're going to do well because what I've seen so far, you have a very great personality.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I'm impressed. So I know you're going to do well.
And after all, you're both Spartans, so that has to say something for you.
Exactly. But thank you so much for joining us today on City Beat.
Thank you, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm happy to be part of the Rocky Mount family.
All right. Well, thank you as well. If you see Tasha Logan, make sure to say hello to her, and don't forget to tune in because we're going to have more of City Beat coming up very soon. We're going to speak with Kelvin Yarrell, who's our new Parks and Recreation Director, as well as Jonathan Boone, who's now our new Water Resources Director, as well as Public Works Director. So he's taken on a lot. That's coming up on City Beat.